Welcome to the Filmsteins, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level. The $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmsteins, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience.
All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmsteins. Thank you guys for joining us. I am joined today by my flowery friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
Glad you could join us today.
You're welcome.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmsteins. Some recent episodes include our 2024 Oscar nomination briefing, where we lightly discuss Disney's Wish, Illumination's Migration, Past Lives, and Rice Boy Sleeps. Don't be sleeping on that movie, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we're discussing our very first Martin Scorsese film.
This is our first Martin Scorsese film?
Yes, Killers of the Flower Moon, his recent outing. I've been dreading this watch.
You and me both have been dreading this watch.
Because it's kissing that 3.5 hour mark, and that 3 hour mark's hard enough to get through, but I'm too modern to sit still for 3.5 complete hours.
You know, I was thinking about that too, because I can't do long movies either. But, man, can I binge watch a show.
But the funny thing about that is I think there's some embedded punctuation between episodes in a show normally, and some movies even, when the acts are very explicit. But that is kind of funny how that is. And same thing with like games or books. You can just sit there and do the thing, but there's a sense of punctuation within a lot of that stuff, I think, normally, versus a movie that has a runtime of 2.5, 3.5 hours or more. There's something very continuous about that that's potentially grating.
Yeah.
But I am happy to report back that this was not a bad movie. How about that?
How about that?
I don't know if Martin Scorsese's ever made a bad movie, to be honest.
I'm sure he has.
But I will say this movie does start to fit this bill that I've mentioned several times here on the podcast. It's not a movie for me, but there's something intellectually profound about this that it's hard to not appreciate the production and vision and performance we get here. It is nothing short of amazing, and I even appreciate the self-awareness that we'll get to that happens at the end of this film, and the delicate, sensitive approach Martin takes on the perspective of the Osage through a dim-witted Leo. I like that a lot. But just the content, the context, the documentary kind of style of filmmaking is just a little dry for my millennial brain. So, what do you think about Killers of the Flower Moon, man?
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I liked it for that. I found it interesting in a way that, or I found it likable in a way that I like docudramas. So I think that helped it a lot for me, because it was a long movie. And if you kind of just treat it like a crime show, almost, then it gives you that sense of the continuation. Like you kind of brought up a second ago, that continuation you need to be able to keep going and watching a long movie like this. So I like that a lot. I think that definitely helped. Because this movie wasn't boring as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be mega boring. Even though I had no idea what it was about, it just looked boring. Like the poster looked boring. I don't know any of his previous work, really, besides Wolf of Wall Street.
Which is, I think, one of the more outliers in his filmography, funny enough.
But you read the rest of his filmography, and it looks boring.
You're like, what is Goodfellas?
Yeah.
What is Taxi Driver?
It all sounds, I don't know. It doesn't sound like I want to watch it.
He does kind of start to float this line of a very specific filmmaker who captures something that's got his DNA all over it over and over and over again, similar to Christopher Nolan, where if you like one of his movies, you probably will like all of them in some way or another. But if you don't like one, there's probably a good chance you may not like very many, because he's just got a very specific flavor, and some things just aren't for everyone. And I bring it up over and over again that there's something kind of intellectually, totally confident there and competent, but it's just the chemistry between me and the film just doesn't really shoot off.
That's funny, because that's what I thought helped it for me. The just kind of criminal nature and the documentary style really helped me like it. If it would have been about anything else, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it this much. So that gave it quite a few points in my book. And
I guess I will say that angle does help sell it to me cinematically, because it did give it that weird documentary flavor, and at times even felt a little Wes Anderson-y with its cutaways. And I was just like, this is very neat. I wish I liked it more kind of thing. So
yeah, does Martin Scorsese not know what a TV show is?
I know, right?
Because this would have been a great TV show. I would have binged the shit out of this. Tack on 2-3 more hours, you got a mini series, or hell, even a series with 6 episodes or something.
It's funny that you say that, because Martin Scorsese is probably the biggest champion of cinema, and he likes to go on links about how certain franchises are destroying the movie-going experience, and what the expectation is of all of that. So it's kind of a great irony to say that, I guess.
Yeah, because I was skimming through his wiki, and he is very passionate about the Criterion Collection and working with that to preserve cinema. So that is kind of ironic, isn't it? But I mean, come on, man. You're telling me he doesn't watch TV shows?
It's kind of ironic, and too, because he's such a champion of cinema and just the evolution of cinema in its entirety. He's been making films since 1967.
Holy crap. My parents weren't even born.
So you'd think his passion for filmmaking, just in general, getting behind the camera, fulfilling on a vision, right? He would understand the current evolution of things like TV and how cinematic TV is becoming in some corners of TV land. And he may have something to say about that. I'm not sure. I'm not a Scorsese expert by any stretch, but he does seem pretty stubborn to die on the hill that there is a proper way to go about filmmaking. Hence, I guess, his 3.5-hour movies, because I think he has several of them.
I don't know. I appreciate his appreciation for the craft, but come on, this would have been perfect. It's okay. David Lynch made a TV show, and look how he feels about TV. I'm sure other great directors have worked on other TV shows, so it's okay.
I mean, he's probably even produced some, if I had to guess.
Yeah, when I scrolled through his filmography, nothing really popped up about TV, but I didn't look that much. I just didn't see a table of TV episodes or anything, or shows, whatever, so I assumed he hasn't done anything. But yeah, he could have benefited from that. I'm just saying. I don't know if I've ever enjoyed a 3-hour film, except one, of course, the 2005 King Kong with Jack Black. I could watch that for 3 hours. I think it's 3 hours and 21 minutes with credits. So I could watch that for 3.5 hours and then watch it again for 3.5 hours. I just absolutely love that movie. I wouldn't cut anything out.
Roger Ebert said, "A good movie's never long enough, and a bad movie's never short enough."
Well said, Roger. But I felt like in this film, not every minute was justified. And that's something a lot of reviews have been saying. Every minute is justified. I don't know about that. I think he could have skimmed off a lot for a movie, especially a movie you want at the movie theater. I applaud people who went to go see it at the movie theater. I do.
There would have been no way. I would have fallen asleep. I can't. I gotta get up and move. We need to bring back the like interstitial, 15-minute break so we can walk around outside, smoke a cigarette, whatever you need to do, take a shit.
Yeah, the intermission thing.
Intermission, yeah, excuse me.
I know a lot of other places, a lot of other countries have intermission. I know in Mexico, that's a big thing. You go get refills during intermission. Come on, more money for you. But I don't understand. I don't understand. That's it. I don't understand anything. And I can't exactly pinpoint the parts I would take out because there are some bits that are long that should be there for the tension or for whatever is going on in the scene. And there are other parts where I would have taken that out. And I was watching an interview. Well, I didn't watch the interview. I watched the YouTube short version of the interview. It was like 2 minutes. But basically, Martin Scorsese said that he wanted to include some parts that he found in his source material to kind of let us know that there's a lot going on here that people just don't know or don't understand. I think one of the examples he pointed out was a part where someone said to somebody, make sure you get all the furniture out or something like that. And we don't find out anything else. We don't find out why that was said. We don't establish that again. It was just a one sentence and boom, gone. So that definitely sounds like something you want to take out. Like, what the fuck? But he felt very adamant about including something like that in the film. But come on, man, you have to know that this is just ridiculously long to be including stuff like that. That's why you moved to TV. Just saying.
All right, man, this is a little bit of a beast of a movie. How do you want to dive in?
I guess let's start in the beginning and just how it took him over 40 minutes to establish the plot.
That white folks are coming to take your riches.
That's it. It took him 40 minutes to say that. That's too long, Martin. Too long.
Well, we had to beat Mollie down to nothing.
We had to kill off all of Mollie's family.
One by one.
One by one. Although that didn't take the first 40 minutes. That took the whole movie.
I guess that 40 minutes was kind of the metamorphosis of Ernest into kind of being part of the plan without knowing what exactly he was doing. Like, he did and he didn't. I did really appreciate the lack of like planning they had. We saw them do the act, we saw them commit the crime, but we didn't see them organize it because it kept us kind of in the dark of how involved Ernest really was. Is he just the idiot with the gun that's, can pull the trigger? Or is he more... Because like, if they would have given us more context in that, we would have been a little bit more suspicious of Ernest. But it kind of makes us feel even worse for Mollie, because Mollie picked like the best of the bunch, but he's also kind of at the core of why everything's falling apart. And so we have to balance with Leo's dimwittedness and the ease, King has on him with controlling him.
No, you're onto something there, because I think that was a very genius way to tell this story through Ernest's eyes. And I mean, yeah, you don't know the whole time if he's greedy or if he's really in love with Mollie, or is it both? Because we're humans and we're complicated, and that happens. It's not a good or bad situation. And I think a lot of films try to say that we're just humans kind of deal. But I think he does a really good job here saying that, especially with Uncle Bill. Although I will add that towards the end, at the trial, we get a hint of what Ernest did and didn't know. And just the realization of saying some of these things out loud hitting him. So I appreciated that. I appreciated maybe some context of what actually was going on, because he's not a reliable character. He's dumb.
And he's in love.
It's the worst combination.
That's
dumber, yeah. And our two other characters that we get a lot of screen time are Mollie and the uncle. And they're just as unreliable as Ernest.
Mollie's closed off, and Martin never gives us what's kind of behind the curtains, and we know from the get-go how predatory King is.
Yeah, that motherfucker is a savage. And out of all 10 Oscar nominations that this movie got, I think Robert De Niro being nominated as Best Supporting Actor is the most deserved one, for sure. He does a phenomenal job. I really like Lily Gladstone's performance when she's talking to Ernest and when they're kind of having their little fling in the beginning. I love their connection and the way she talks to him. I love that playfulness. I really like that probably the most in this film. But there's no denying that Robert De Niro did a phenomenal job here.
What about Leo's scowl? He must have studied Florence Pugh.
That's funny. That's funny. Someone said he looked like the scowl emoji. They showed him a picture and just said, "Be this," and he said, "Okay."
I don't know how he maintained that. His cheeks, man, must have been so sore.
Was it a little exaggerated? Was it a bit too much?
I mean, at some point you just have to assume that that's just his face. You know? I don't think it's an expression. I think it's just his resting bitch face. He's just got resting depression face.
That's funny. And sometimes Uncle King here had the same scowl, and it was hilarious because that just helped them relate them to one another. But I thought it was a bit too much, because sometimes I found myself just looking at him and not paying attention to anything else that was going on, and just thinking, why does he have that scowl on his face right now? Or thinking, how does he maintain that? Is it the teeth? Do the teeth kind of help him?
Yeah, I don't know. I did really like that Leo wasn't really the central figure in all this. He was just kind of our eyes. Of course, he played his part, but he normally plays kind of loud, bombastic characters, flirtatious and whatnot. And here he was very controlled, minus his face, I guess. I really liked that the movie was able to flow kind of through him instead of him guiding the movie. Which, I mean, contextually makes sense, right? It's Mollie and her family and the Osage's story, and he's the closest non-predatory character to that, and so he's that happy, well, not so happy, but he's that middle ground to give us the clearest point of view. Although he's an unreliable character, his character doesn't get in the way of how the film is depicted, other than him taking part in some of the murders and stuff.
Yeah, typically he plays this kind of charming,
smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, like he's gonna be the guy. I get that. That's probably why they gave him the ugly teeth. Let's knock him down a few pegs and not let all these girls focus on Leo. And they still managed to make him look like a bad guy, even though he's not a bad guy. He's not like the uncle here, or even, Byron, who actually killed some people. I don't know how many murders Ernest actually took part of, but for sure I know Byron killed Anna and held her down while the other guy shot her in the back of the head. He's actually guilty. I saw him do it. Another thing I really liked about this movie is the humor. There were some parts that really made me laugh, and it's not a humorous movie, but Martin Scorsese had some fun here with some of the humor bits. One of the scenes I really laughed at was when Ernest is telling Bill that he doesn't like him, or he doesn't like how he looks or something.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, well, that's how God made me. Like, what do you want me to do? But before that, he asks him if he wants a drink. And he says, well, sure, I'll take one if you don't mind. He's like, no, I'm basically just asking. I'm not going to give you one. And then he tells him he doesn't like him. He's like, well, there's nothing I can do about that. This is how God made me. Oh, man, that killed me. That was good. And I also liked when John Ramsey, who was in charge of killing Mollie's ex, he was supposed to make it look like a suicide, but he shot him in the back of the head. and he didn't leave the gun. I mean, that was fun. That was funny. And there's probably a lot of other funny bits, especially with the uncle and Ernest. And almost every time they're interacting with each other, it makes me laugh. Cuz he's so dumb, and his uncle's just like, he's over his shit basically. And he wants things to be done right because he doesn't want to get in trouble for, being guilty. I mean, but their interactions are so hilarious. They kill me. I mean, when she got pregnant that last time, he asks him, "Are you making love to your sickly wife?" And Ernest is like, "I mean, yeah,
We're married. That's what happens."
It was so funny. And then right after that, I think he makes a joke about him being the baby daddy. And it's weird and it's funny. I liked it. Or one of the other scenes, I don't know where this scene took place, but he's talking to Ernest about a potential killing, a potential plot. And Ernest is like just thinking, looking away. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. And his uncle's like, I'm talking to you. Look at me. Are you stupid? I don't know what he said.
I think he said, "Look at me like this is making sense."
It was so good. I mean, how did Leo not bust out laughing? Maybe he did. And, of course, that gets edited out. But if I were him, I wouldn't be able to control just how silly some of these things are. They were good. Even when they're talking about women, and he's like, "You like them red?" He's like, "Yeah, I like them red, purple, blue." He's like, "Yeah." And it's like, what are they talking about right now? It was so funny.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was surprisingly funny, especially because of that kind of documentary angle.
Yeah, those typically don't roll that way, do they? I'm thinking Air. Air had absolutely no humor in it whatsoever. The movie was humorous that it was a movie. That made me laugh, but nothing in the movie made me laugh. But I appreciated that.
Is this movie a dad movie?
I don't know. Because of when this takes place, I want to say yes. Because dads like history. Dads like the docudramas.
Especially of the cowboy flavor.
This seems like a dad movie for sure. But just something about it's not giving me dad vibes. I don't know what it is.
That's good. I would say that's a compliment.
Yeah, it's definitely, not a dad movie, but it almost seems like it would be if you're checking off the dad movie boxes. But thank God it's not. How did you feel about the spanking scene? What was the point of that scene, and why did I not find it funny? If that was the point.
I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but there is this kind of dualistic thing happening where, Masons have a set of rules. They're Boy Scouts. They gotta punish those who get out of line, and also beating Ernest like that kind of only emphasizes his childlike nature. I'm not exactly sure what that was about. I thought that was a little weird.
Okay, so it was weird.
There's obviously something historically accurate, or whatever, how you want to phrase it, kind of happening there. I guess the Masons paddled each other like they were in middle school. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
Whatever you're into.
However you need to punish, you punish. Was it out of place? I don't know. But it definitely wasn't in place. And even the room itself felt kind of weird. Like it didn't belong in this movie. Something was off. Something was off about the scene. Something was off about, one man spanking another man. The room itself was off. I didn't pay attention to the lighting or the coloring of the scene, but I'm sure that would have been off too. Something was there, but I didn't get it. It went over my head. There were a lot of obvious oh shit moments in this movie. We're not surprised. After her first two sisters died, we weren't surprised that a lot of other people died. We're not even surprised if Mollie were to die. So a lot of the shock element of some of the things that happened here was kind of gone for me towards the end. But there was one scene that sparked it back, and it was a very beautifully inserted, nice touch that made me say, oh my God, that's fucked up. And it was when I think Byron was given his testimony, it was one of the guys that killed Anna that was given their testimony, and they described everything that happened, and they showed how Byron was holding Anna before the other guy shot her in the back of the head. And then right after that, we have the scene I'm talking about, and it's like a flashback of Mollie giving Byron a pillow when he came home to rest after just killing her sister. And, she got out of bed and gave him a pillow so he could be comfortable, and then went and laid back down. And I said, oh my fucking God, that's fucked up.
Yeah, a lot of what revolves around the testimony is, I think, the best parts of the movie, as far as revealing, the monsters in the closet kind of thing. We see how little they value this non-white life or whatever. And it's funny because up until that point, they insist on doing this the legal way throughout the film. And you're just like, which I don't know if it's supposed to kind of throw you off their trail. I was a little confused with that in maybe the first hour and a half, where are we supposed to think that someone else is doing this, that they're not obviously working together, especially King and Byron and all the people they hire and stuff?
I don't think so. I think we know they're shady because they're just saying it at the convenient time to fool themselves, so to speak, because there's lots of times where they'll reference, well, this is federal land, so this is what needs to happen in federal land. And other times they'd say, oh, well, this is Indian land, and that's not applicable to us because we're free Indian land. So it's like they were saying things for whatever fit their purpose.
I liked how these mini threads kind of came to a head, where we got some of the literal explanations and depiction of some of the executions and how they had no remorse, especially the guy who was talking, like AC something. And when Mollie comes to see Ernest when he's like waiting in that room, that like meeting room or something, and she asks him, she's trying to it seems like she's just trying to get a vibe check of where his head is at. And then she asks, what medicine were you giving me? And I guess that is one of those instances where, brilliantly so, it's kind of left up to the viewer if Ernest was aware of what he was doing, if he was aware he was poisoning Mollie. Because there probably was this internal kind of reflection at that moment of him realizing that, King and Byron and probably the doctors and everyone else he's ever fucking talked to in that town was going to do everything they could to get rid of the Osages that had money. And that included Mollie, of course. And he knew he was adding something, but he obviously had no idea what it was, but he probably had the small inkling of like, what was I adding? Like, I don't really know if I was poisoning her or not. She's better now. I was facilitating the slow death of her. And so I liked how these different threads kind of came to a head at the end there. Of course they would, cinematically, but...
Yeah, that's one part where I was a bit confused on. Well, not confused, just kind of thoughtful. It made me think about whether this was love or greed. Did Ernest really love his wife? And here at the trial there's one moment where I made up my mind essentially that he did love her, and he's dumb as fuck and didn't really grasp what was going on. Because the thing with the insulin, he knew because he tested it on himself. He poured himself like half the vial and he felt like shit, and he knew. But he had already been giving her so much. But then he tested it. So he didn't know until he tested it. So he was just giving her something, whatever they told him to give. Did he suspect? Yeah, probably, maybe, with everything else going on. But in the trial, I think who's ever asking him the question asks him, and I don't know how he phrased it, but they basically ask him, is your uncle responsible for you and Mollie's marriage? Did your uncle set you guys up, basically? And he pauses, and it like, that moment hits him like, oh shit, no. But did he?
Yeah.
It like...
Is he that smart?
It confused him.
Yeah.
He's not that smart.
No, it's what he was asking himself.
Oh, if his uncle was that smart? Yes. Yeah, exactly. And at that moment, I knew this man loved her. And he's just dumb as fuck. And when he got confronted, he didn't know what to say because he didn't know that he was just part of this big plan for his uncle to get rich. At least that's how I took it. There's a lot of things out there saying that he's the worst man alive and he knew the whole time and all these things. But anyone who looked at him and just listened to him, you know he's not the smartest. He's not the brightest crayon in the box.
I don't really think it's up for negotiation either. He makes it pretty clear.
What?
That he loved her and he's kind of realizing that he's a fucking idiot.
Oh, I think so too.
I don't think it's up for interpretation. It's...
Well, we also know he's really greedy.
Of course, he's an idiot and he's driven on, kind of modern at the time, kind of capitalistic booms. That's all he knows is he wants money and he wants a hot girl. Yeah. Nothing else comes out of him, really, except a couple kids. But Martin makes it very clear that he's, yes, not very reliable, but not because he's a liar.
Yeah, it's because he's stupid. If you love your wife, why would you poison her? Well, I didn't know that was poisoning her.
Liar! Yeah, so I guess I have to defend Martin's vision a little bit. But I guess if you did get that Ernest was just one of many bad guys in this.
No, and he had a great excuse too. She had diabetes.
No, sure, and it does. I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, it's totally valid to think that, but it completely destroys the context of their relationship. And that's such a central part of this movie. Otherwise, King would have been the main character, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a fair point.
Or even maybe Mollie is the main character and we see a little bit more, behind her curtains of her being a little uncertain about Ernest and his doings. But yeah, you could extrapolate this to even the baddies here, but humans, right, are a little bit more complex than just being bad or good. Even dumb Ernest here. Yeah.
One thing I also liked was the catalyst of their whole operation basically coming to trial. I love a good catalyst. They find the murder weapon, or someone admits to the crime, or, they found the DNA, like whatever it is. But here, I absolutely love that what gets this train moving is that old guy that's just sitting outside, and he says, well, I'm old now. I don't care if they kill me. I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened. And he tells the agents exactly what happens and what he saw. And that gets started with the whole Anna investigation, and it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. I found it hilarious because of just how true that probably is in a lot of cases. Even some wars, just how silly that start was, how silly that catalyst was. And I like that they incorporated that here.
I liked that too. You almost had a tonal change into a cracking down on the gangster movie happening all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. A sensible kind of evolution of the story. Not tonally incoherent or anything, but...
Yeah, like the aha moment.
But they've been working so hard to pretend to work within the legal system, say things at their convenience, and think they are the smartest guys in town, also being the Osage's best friends, and then they just one little old guy, who's drunk probably 90% of the day, right?
Yeah.
He's like,
I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, he's like, this isn't cool. This has been going on for this long. This is not okay.
I mean, maybe someone pissed him off that day and he's had enough.
Yeah. It's funny.
I like it. I liked it so much. I like the just simplicity of how one person can make a difference. And it was this old man right here.
One funny thing that I wanted to bring up was this thought to take away something from people who appear to have not deserved it or earned it, and they are just reaping the benefits of something like oil, right? They struck oil, gold, whatever. They didn't work for that, that kind of attitude. Because I hear that a lot on the internet. You might too. We all probably do. Where people like, these CEOs and whatever presidents of whatever company, don't deserve their $10 million bonuses or whatever, or salaries, because what do? They just run the company. And it's just a bizarre thought to think, I guess, in the first place, but it's a whole other crazy ass thing to want to try to take it away from someone, but I guess does happen. But there's something very modern about that kind of capitalistic jealousy or something. They didn't work for it. And then some of the Osage people, I think, also said that about some of the white boys, being like, they just sit around, do nothing all day. And I love that there's a back and forth there that you could spin however you want, because no one works hard enough ever, no matter what you're doing, unless you're The Rock, apparently. People like to credit him as being hardworking man, right? I think Elon Musk, he's got like 25 companies. He's got to be, but he's a CEO. He doesn't work. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're absolutely right.
I wish I could see that attitude in a movie that takes place in like 500 CE, where we have this property jealousy thing happening and wanting to take it away. Like, I want to see some old timey version of that, and where doesn't revolve around like just simple monies.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious to kind of find out where this type of attitude comes from for us. Because you're right, that CEO who sits in meetings all day.
What the fuck is he doing?
What is he doing?
He needs to give his $10 million bonus to the rest of his people.
Exactly. He doesn't need that much. But yeah, that's always hard for me to identify in films for some reason. Because, I don't know, maybe I just find it too obvious. That kind of capitalistic greed mindset. And how it parallels to today. I don't know. Also, that kind of thing just doesn't speak to me a lot in movies. Maybe that's why I don't think about it too much.
Sure. And it also might expose the somewhat simplicity and familiarity we all share to a core level of just a common human experience. Because we all experience that in some way. We all experience a little bit of jealousy.
Yeah, you hear me talk about all the time the incompetent people I work with that make more money than I do. Or the people that work from home and they still can't get their shit done. And they make more money than I do.
It's a funny thing. Did you have trouble keeping up with everybody? We had a lot of moving parts, a lot of names in a small span of time, right? It's not Game of Thrones where we have 7, 8 seasons, 10 episodes or so, hour each of time to figure out everybody's name. We had 3.5 hours to figure out how many people's names? 15 people?
Oh my gosh. Way more than that. And Game of Thrones, I mean, even after rewatching all 8, however many seasons there are, again, I can remember maybe half the people's names. And I love Game of Thrones. So I was so confused here. There was a part where they killed a guy named Barney. And I mean, they made a big deal and the scene was so long. And I was like, oh no, who the fuck is Barney? And why am I supposed to care right now? Because the scene felt like I was supposed to care right now. I had no idea who Barney was. And I think you said, oh, I think that's the guy that's supposed to go to Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh no, we just met him like 2 seconds ago. It was a little bit crazy. And I mean, you had, Brendan Fraser and the old grandpa from Planet of the Apes movie. I don't know his actor name.
Yeah, I'm not sure his name.
Show up for the last I don't know, felt like the last 5 minutes, but I'm sure it was like an hour, 20 minutes. I don't know. I don't know how long they were in there for the trial. So they introduced a lot of characters. I mean, besides Mollie, Ernest, and Uncle Bill Hale, and Byron, that's all I remembered. And then it took me like 2 hours in to remember Mollie's sisters. I'm like, okay, Minnie's the one that died first. And then Rita or Greta, I'm not sure, because I'm reading the subtitles, so the subtitles really help. So I know there's one right there, and then there's Bill who married both, and then there's Lizzie, the mom, because she has a very common name, and then Anna, who has the worst death, and then the worst execution of her, or the worst, I don't know, they fucking chop her up. She has a open floor autopsy in the woods. It was weird.
That was also a very weird scene, kind of like the one at the Mason Lodge, where it's just a little not quite like the Mason one, but is a little Lynchian in its macabreness, and everybody's watching, and
no one's saying anything. No one's like
Yeah.
gasping, like, what are they doing? Like, yeah, it was weird.
And then we just get Mollie screaming, or her facial expression is definitely screaming, which are all great. Her reaction performances are all amazing.
Yes. And besides them, everyone else I had to look up, or I had to, I know there's Blackie somewhere, and there's a John, and probably a Bobby, I'm sure, but I can't tell you who they did or what they did.
Yeah, it's definitely a shortcoming of that cinematic film approach. If we had a TV show, we could marinate a little bit more on this.
I mean, just look at the wiki page and scroll through it. I didn't recognize probably 3/4 of those people, even with their description. I was like, what? I gotta see them. It was a lot. It was a lot of character.
You gotta give it up to Martin, though. How does he have this much control on a set? It's amazing.
Yeah. I wonder if he has to yell a lot.
Oh, I bet Martin Scorsese is a big-time yeller. He gives me big-time yeller vibes.
Yeah, to put a production this size, I'm sure he's got to scare the shit out of some people to make it work. A good teacher always scares the shit out of you.
We kind of touched on it in the very beginning of this episode, this self-awareness within this film, which of course I tend to like. It can of course go in the kind of the cringy route when you're a little too meta. But because of the current landscape of filmmaking, and maybe since commercialization has taken over the West, making movies or even maybe writing books can feel predatory on certain subjects. Like you're just trying to cash in on either outrage or a good story. I like Martin's decision to retell the Osage story, what just happened through a radio performance, which is very cool to see in action like that. And then I like that Martin steps in himself as one of the narrators of the story of the production, kind of calibrating the audience of just how catastrophic and serious and how embarrassed we should be as human beings to let this happen.
Well, that's really well said. So I feel a little bad about what I'm going to say next. But I didn't like it one bit. We often talk about how people will say something feels pretentious and what makes a movie pretentious. This right here gave me pretentious vibes. I don't know. You already established how fucked up this story is
through its cinematic kind of explanation and the literal context.
Yes, and even the well, they're not flashbacks, but the kind of black and white flashes we got of the Osage people, and especially the one towards the beginning where they're getting actually killed and making it pass off as suicide or whatever. That right there alone, you don't need to tell me the rest of the story on how fucked up it is. So coming back and telling us at the end when I'm already antsy as fuck for you making me sit here for 3 hours, I don't know. It felt like too much to me. It felt like, just get over yourself. Well, it didn't feel like that until he walked out. And then he had to deliver the last line. Then I was like, okay, get over yourself. I know I've heard you. I've been hearing you. I've been listening. Yes, we are a piece of shit. Yes, we're all lazy. I got you. And then you told us that last bit about Mollie. And now she died and, she remarried and died. Yeah, we saw that coming. Not even Ernest, who was the most likable, like you said earlier on, the best of the bunch, could win her over or could not kill her, really. And then you had to let us know that she remarried and died. Like, yeah, we saw that coming. So I don't know. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. And it was cool to look at, the radio thing and the kind of podcast vibes, really, like true crime podcast vibes. That's what it gave me. It didn't flow. It just didn't feel consistent to the story. It almost would have been better to put like real pictures or even text, how movies do at the end, to tell us what happened. So I guess in a way this is different. I haven't seen this done quite like this before. So he wanted a different spin. Sure, I get that. But I don't know, man. You took me out. I don't even... Besides what he said at the end about Mollie, I didn't even hear the rest of it because my little ADHD brain was like, what is going on right now?
Is this the same movie? Did you change your channel? It's funny to say that because there's maybe multiple things happening there where you're good-natured enough and, maybe cynical enough to see the monstrosities within all of us, but also to realize how fucked up this instance was and many other instances like this are and will be. I mean, I'm with you because I don't empathize with the idea of cinema or whatever just being entertainment. If this was just entertainment, it has a different flavor to it all of a sudden. So I guess part of me is not opposed to the overstatement of the importance of certain pieces of art and productions and literature and how they obviously transcend a lot of our view on how we consume things and like movies and video games and books, which of course Martin Scorsese is a defender of, right? He's the champion of cinema and its art form, right? Something needs to be said. It's not all for the thrills. So I could see the negotiation happening within people of how do you take that. It's hard for me to empathize with any kind of pretentiousness there because he's arguably the greatest director to ever live. I don't love his movies, but his productions are, if not unmatched, on that kind of legendary level, right? He will be looked back in 200 years from now as, a Shakespeare of film. So, but I totally get that kind of combination of natural goodness with a pepper of cynicism in you. Because it's also sad that he feels like he needs to do that.
Yeah, that he has to come out and say it. That's exactly what I was thinking listening to you say that. He has to come out to tell the idiots that don't see that automatically. And my train of thought is, well, will they even watch this film? Will they even understand what he even said to them? So I don't know. Maybe I have zero faith in humanity.
Which is in itself a problem.
Yes.
Because I'm sure you're not alone. All right, man. Well, thank you for this talk, and thank you for watching this movie with me.
You're welcome. You're really welcome.
Do you have a budget guess for me today?
I will say this wasn't too hard to immediately push over the 100 million mark.
Good, yeah.
It's our boy Martin here. It's long as fuck. It's a beautifully made production and it looks expensive. So I went 150 automatically. So that might be like my lowest guess because why would you spend more than that?
I know, it starts to become kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, so I kept it at 150.
Well, it says here that it was 200 million.
Holy. He's that CEO who has too much money right now.
Well, you can thank Apple for that. They were the beneficiaries here.
Nice. Well done.
And it did go to theaters, but of course it was made for Apple TV or whatever their shit's called. But it went on to make $156 million at the theater.
Ooh, okay.
But again, it's made for the streaming service, so it's hard to know how well it did monetarily.
Right, because I know, especially us, we're not going to the movie theater to watch this. So I'm sure a lot of people felt the same.
Yeah.
The same way. All right. Well, that's a lot of money. Is that the highest one we've covered so far? I want to say there's another one, but it's not popping out in my brain.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to make a rolling list of the top.
I know.
5 or 10 or whatever. But yeah, man. Well, over on Letterboxd, it says with 768,000 people, lots of folks.
That is lots of folks.
They're giving it an average of 4.1.
All right.
The way people talk about it, it seems like that's pretty fitting.
Yeah.
People think this is one of the great Scorsese films now.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. I'm very curious to hear what you would give it or how you're feeling.
Of course, it's a difficult film to score in that way. So many are, except ones you love. 5 out of 5 for all, or 0 out of 5 if you hate it, or 1 or whatever, however you do it. Because it's not a film that speaks to me on a cinematic level, an artistic level, even a human experience level. It's got very big documentary chops. It's a historical drama, more or less. So it's just inherently not something that's going to speak to me. So it's a constant uphill battle for this kind of movie, no doubt. So I did give it a 3 as well.
What?
Yeah, because it hits that mark where its production, its direction and vision and performances are a complete non-issue. They are excellent. But personally, it's missing the deep character study, and it's not weird enough, I guess.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I, too, had a hard time giving this a score. I don't like movies that are too long, but it didn't feel like, Batman. It didn't make me anxious like Batman did. It didn't bore me, but I felt the longness. And I feel like a 3 is the minimum you could give this movie. You shouldn't be giving this movie a 2.5. 3 is the minimum. So I don't know. I kind of went there. Could it change? Maybe. And just something about it having been nominated for 10 Academy Awards rubs me the wrong way. Because it didn't stand out like some of the other films we watched this year. I get the best picture. Do I completely get the best director? Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Best actress? Yes, definitely see that. Supporting actor? Yes, definitely see that. But some of the ones with costume design or the score or even song, I don't know. Those, I'm sure I can find better nominations than this movie. I think people are scoring it a little too high. I don't know why. Is it just because it's Martin Scorsese? Like, that's it? Or because you have to feel like you have to like a movie that's covering such a sensitive topic? I mean, did you never pick up a history book?
It's all sensitive.
Yeah, exactly. It's all sensitive. That's life. I don't know. I don't know. Just something about it.
You're racist if you don't like this movie. Obviously.
There it is. You're racist.
No, I totally get that. And I'd be a terrible judge of, Best Picture. Because I would give this the director nom over the Best Picture nom. Because in my mind, Best Picture is a film that pushes the boundaries. It's kind of a loaded thing to say, but there's something very standard here. It's a high level of standard, but there's something very standard here, with the exception of these strange little Wes Anderson cutaways and actions. But that's even standard for Wes Anderson, I guess, at this point. After, 15 movies he's made?
Yeah, I don't know how many movies he's made.
So I feel you. Is there a Scorsese bump? Of course there is.
Yes.
He's one of the most important directors to ever live, and he always will be. He's going to be remembered way beyond someone like a Steven Spielberg or a Quentin Tarantino. But I guess it may be a little ironic for Martin Scorsese, because he's also, I would imagine, the kind of person that would want to deconstruct and invalidate the idea of a kind of biased bump for certain directors or franchises or whatever. Because he'd want the piece to kind of stand on its own, not because it's a Martin Scorsese film, not because it's a Leo film, right? So it's kind of a funny thing, but...
Yeah, I don't know if he's that kind of guy. I don't know.
Is he... How egotistical is Martin Scorsese? I don't know. I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, I've only seen that short of him talking about that scene. Yeah, I'd be interested, but these 10 nominations are ridiculous. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, you guys, thank you for listening to this episode. That was a fun talk. Hopefully everyone learned something. I learned something.
What'd you learn?
I learned that Martin Scorsese is funny. Funny guy. Ha ha.
I learned that he's been making movies as long as my parents have been alive. Which is insanity.
Yeah. That's cool, isn't it?
That's awesome.
Remember, we post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on patreon.com/filmistines, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all the goods. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Go over to our Patreon and subscribe. Give us $1. Write something. Request a movie. Thank you so much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines, signing off.